Greetings, everyone. Thank you for attending another segment of the Growth Hour. Tonight, we have the topic, a unique topic, but one that we feel that needs to be addressed, and it's surrounding the parole boards in the United States, not only in your state, but in all parole boards. As everyone has been aware of, we recently gave an update that Dwayne Brooks, has been given a new trial. So with that being said, what I would like to do is have Aisha Robinson, his sister, give you an update, and then we're going to go straight into the topic that we have. But before we do that, let me make my announcements. Lisa Riley, can you give your announcement of the event on May 6th?
On May 6th in Canton, Ohio, free event. It's going to be at Nimisila Park. The address is 1075 OJ Parkway, Northeast, Canton, Ohio, 44705. If you need more information than that, shoot me an inbox and I'll shoot you a flyer. This is a free event with the best speakers in the world, the panel you see here. So with that, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Amanda and Sasha have some events up in New York that are coming up. Can y'all please share with everyone what those events are? Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No
So,
problem.
greetings, everyone. I'm hoping everyone is having a great night. There's just a few things we wanted to mention. April 29th we're having from 12 to 4. Hey, sorry, my phone is ringing. From 12 to 4, a anti-violence event at Restoration in Brooklyn, New York. It is definitely a piece that will discuss numerous things concerning violence, domestic violence, human trafficking awareness, in addition to some issues concerning perceived stress. And we love if Mr. Brooks at that time is going to be out, we'll definitely welcome him to have a mic and time to talk about the circumstances that have brought him to this point. So we've already made way, and we're looking forward to seeing him there. Also, May 20th, we have an event called Revamp. This is the second annual, where it's discussing mental wellness or mental health. It's a point to rejuvenate the mind, in addition to discuss some of the issues that affect cognitive resonance. We also plan to spread the news about having people interested, or not more so, people more involved in understanding the contribution that melanated people have had in the martial arts field. It's important to know the history and the contributions that has been established globally and has been a mark in the expansion of the art. And so these are some things that are going on, and we welcome everyone. As we get information, we'll definitely provide more. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, can you give us a brief update of Mr. Brooks? And then we're going to go right into the topic because it surrounds his scenario. I have a question that I know I posed to you that I want to pose to the panel and hear what their response is to it. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Jones. Good evening, everyone. The update with Dwayne Brooks is that we have a bail hearing set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. tomorrow, we're going in front of the judge in regards to the bail motion that was put out there. And we are, praying for good, positive outcome, and to have him on the grounds at some point tomorrow evening after bail. I'm hearing so many different types of scenarios and how this could play out and what, the conditions of this might be, but really just praying for God to just be in the midst of it all and a little bit of justice come out of tomorrow's hearing.
Thank you. tonight's topic is surrounding the parole boards in the United States. You know, I know that Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong, he was sentenced to 25 years to life. So that means he has seen the parole board on numerous occasions, at least I'm gonna say numerous occasions. I'm gonna say it that way. I'm not, and he was denied on every occasion. And had this motion not been successful, he would still be sitting in prison waiting to see those same parole board that he's been getting denied from years. But now the thing that puzzles me, and I asked the panel, is there's no doubt based on the police reports that have surfaced that Mr. Brooks is innocent. And that being the case, this is the direction that everything is going in at this point. That even again, correct me if I'm wrong, the judge is saying that or I don't want to put them in the words. I would like for you to explain what the order was of what the judge said in his finding, a fact that made him feel like it was warranted for Dwayne to have a new trial.
So he cited 3 points in why he was granting Dwayne a new trial. The first one, and I'm trying to recall them in order, but the first one was based on the police reports and the eyewitnesses and their testimony, their statements that were suppressed. And he felt that had that information been put forward, had it been produced and shared, it really tied up their theory of how many people were involved in this situation. And it also indicated that Dwayne Brooks was not on scene, not identified. There were apparently 5 people, and 5 people were positively identified, none of them being Dwayne Brooks. So that was point 1. Point 2 was the so-called star witness, the person who the state made their star witness and was due to testify against Dwayne, and they built their whole case around. The judge ruled that it was clear that this man was lying, and that he was completely unworthy of the jury's trust. That was his wording. And then the third point was that it was clear that Dwayne was not a major drug trafficker. And it was clear to him that this star witness was the person who fit the narrative of being a drug trafficker based on his prior history, as well as being involved in this so-called turf war that this whole situation is supposedly about. So based on those 3 things, he was granting Dwayne a new trial.
Thank you. So it's clear that the witness was lying and he was not worthy of the jury's trust. I want to build on that one. That tells me that the judge feels that Dwayne didn't, and this is just my opinion. I'm not putting no words in paraphrase. The judge does not feel that Dwayne Brooks really played a part in this at all. It was the star witness that assisted, and I bring this up even though you haven't, that was in trouble and was just helping himself get a reduced sentence or get some favor. I want to say some favor with the prosecution that he was assisting in Dwayne's prosecution. This is prevalent in the judicial system today, where we call it trading people. Person to give a person up or go testify against a person to help their self get out of jail. This is common now, So again, back to the parole board. I want to tie this into the parole board. Mr. Brooks seen the parole board on numerous occasions, and each time he was denied. And they were, for whatever reason, and we're going to get into. Go ahead.
Can I just chime in just a little bit?
Sure.
So he was originally sentenced to 20 years to life. So he was supposed to see the parole board 20 years. The very first time that he went to the parole board, which was in 2005, he had a whole hearing. And before they came back with the decision, instead of them coming back with the decision on whether or not he was going to be granted a parole, the parole department came back and said that they were striking that first from the record. They were going to they were rescinding that whole hearing, and they were going to reschedule the hearing based on the fact that they felt like his sentence was incorrect. And so they corrected it to show that he would not be eligible for parole until 25 years. So his sentence was 20 to life, and they rescinded it after the hearing actually happened, to tell him that they were correcting his sentence because his sentence was incorrect. He should have actually received 25 years, and then he would have been eligible for parole, sometime after that initial parole hearing. So after that, I think he's had 5 parole hearings in total altogether. Since he's been incarcerated. Again, like I said, the first one being stricken. Each time that Dwayne was denied a parole, it was a minimum of 5 years before coming back to the parole board. So 5 years in between, just kind of tacking on time, right, from the parole board. That's parole assigned time. And then the final decision being denied in 2020. So technically, Dwayne is not supposed to see the parole board again until 2025. However, here we are on our way to an overturned conviction with a person who's been denied parole, and for no real merit. But I'll give it back to you on that, Mr. Jones, and we can.
Want to touch on a few things that you said. You're saying that his original sentence. I just want people to understand the power that these parole boards possess, because you're telling me that the judge sentenced him to 20 to life, and the parole board stopped the hearing, struck the hearing, and re-sentenced Dwayne without the assistance of a judge or a court, and gave him 5 more years essentially, and then said, okay, now come back in those 5 years. And then they went on as if nothing happened. They didn't change the sentence, even though they're not a judge. There wasn't the sentencing judge or anything like that there. That's a lot of power, Aisha. I think that a lot of people need to understand the power that these non Article 3 officials, or that's a federal judge, or other people that have been sworn on in judges possess. Briefly, I want to, get into the Alabama parole board. We have a gentleman that's in Alabama, which we're going to assist in coming up in the future. He went to a parole hearing, and they denied him and told him their decision is final. He can't appeal it. We did a reconsideration by their rules. They didn't even hear it, and they're saying, hey, just come back in 5 years, and they're giving this 5-year hit. Where does a decision be made at in the judicial process where it's non-appealable? What gives them the right to be able to say, hey, whatever we say, it goes? And I'm not only asking you, I just want people to understand how these extended branches of the tree of the judicial system appears to have just as much power as a judge. You're telling me again, he got 20 years. They corrected the sentence, which is troubling. And then you're saying that he had 5 hearings. Each time he went before the parole board, they gave a reason for why he was denied parole. Can you expound on that reason? Kevin, I see your hand
up. So there are check boxes in the state of Ohio. They have 3 check boxes on their denials. And each time up until 2020, the checkbox that they checked for Dwayne was due to the serious nature of the crime. He was not eligible for parole. There's a small section in that denial where they will write some commentary. And many of the years, the commentary was Dwayne Brooks shows no remorse for this crime.
Okay. Before I touch on that, Mr. Hayes, you had your hand up. Would you care to share this time?
I understand that you mentioned the authority and power that they have to do this, but technically they don't have the authority and the power to do it. It's just not being challenged because it's already been challenged and ruled on. You have to go back maybe 30 years ago, United States versus Mistretta, when the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia says that the statute is being override by the guidelines and it's a Congress working in the Congress. Fast forward that to 2000 with the Apprende, Booker, and Fanfan ruling. So what they are doing is they have a non-judicial setup outside of a judicial setup that's not even lawful, but no one is challenging it like that. That's one. Two, the only one who can alter a sentence is supposed to be a judge. They had no business doing that. And whoever the lawyer is dropped the ball because whenever they open and alter a sentence, it starts his whole proceedings all over again. I wish I knew y'all back then. I would have had a ball with y'all and your lawyers. But that's unfortunate, what happened. But as I said, they don't, by law, they don't have the authority to do it in light of Apprende versus New Jersey, Booker, Fanfan, you name it, because they don't have the judicial authority. This is why now the guideline, the Sentencing Commission, they make recommendations. It goes up to Congress. As long as Congress say don't mention nothing or they don't bother to change it, then it goes into law. That's where they get their authority from Congress. Before Congress there was no oversight over the Sentencing Commission, just like what's happening now in Ohio and several other places. But no one is challenging it under.
Let me share this with you because we're going through this with a gentleman named Joshua Williams in the state of Alabama. You're saying 2 points I want to make. You said one, the lawyer dropped the ball. Keep in mind when you're in prison when you get up to your actual parole date, the date you're eligible for parole, you no longer have an attorney. You have exhausted all of your appeal rights and stuff like that. So there's no right to an attorney that latches on at that time. So you don't have an attorney. So you don't have no one to fight for you. So that's how it's able to get slipped past because we, tend to not get in there and get as involved in our cases or our situations as much as we should. For whatever reason, it may be because we're not capable of doing it. It may be something that hinders us. We're not faulting no one for not doing it. The ones who can, do it. The ones that can't, we understand. But they have no attorney, so there's no one to argue on the behalf of this person who relied on an attorney from the start. So when it happens, we are learning. I don't think that where Dwayne Brooks is at right now, legally, his amount of knowledge that he knows at this point right now, he probably didn't know that. 15, we definitely know he wasn't at the same place 15 years ago. Yes, he had some knowledge of it, and he was on the path to obtaining the knowledge that he obtained, but he hadn't reached that plateau yet to be able to say, hey, let me file this motion, let me do this, let me do that, or he would have done that. I honestly believe that about Dwayne Brooks. Now, first point, we don't have no attorney to fight for. Second point is some of these parole boards don't allow you the opportunity to appeal. In Alabama, once a decision is made, the parole board said their decision is unappealable. I know, and anybody that's been in the system knows that there should not be a decision rendered about a person's liberty that can't be appealed to someone to look at an independent, get an independent person to look at it and come up with a decision. Alabama prohibits you from doing that. You know, how the parole board in Alabama. And this is why, you know, I wanted to have this show because again, in short, in due time, we have a gentleman named Joshua Williams that went to the parole board a couple of times, and every time they're denying him. We've written letters. We have jobs lined up, places to stay. You know, he's mentored before. He's done everything that fits the criteria to be out on parole. And they're going back to what Aisha said, the nature of the offense. That was taken into consideration when they gave a set amount of time for you to be eligible to see the parole board. All of the natures of the offenses were taken into effect at that time. You can't, you know, logically, you can't keep using that when you say, hey, if you cross the street, you got to see the parole board. You can't see the parole board for 1 year. You got to do at least this amount of time. That was taking that into effect. Then you can't come back after every year and say, well, it's the nature of the offense. Why? Okay, you deny the nature of the offense. How many times can you use that? Go ahead, Mr. Hayes.
Well, one point to that too that I just want to make is that the nature of the crime is never going to change, right? It's always going to be the nature of the crime, but that's not what corrections and rehabilitation is supposed to be about. When, regardless of what the crime was or what the nature of any crime was, you're convicted of that crime, whether you didn't or you didn't do it, and that's what your sentence based on. But that nature of the crime, to judge someone on that, a murder is always going to be a murder is always going to be a murder. Until cows come home, that's going to be the nature of that crime.
I think it's not. I think it's just an excuse to be able to do what they want to do, which is not release the person. And they go back to, okay, the nature of the crime. Yes, it was a heinous crime, or it might have been a crime that people look down on. I'm not going to say heinous. I'm going to say it's a crime that people don't favor. Okay, we agree with that. But they set a statute saying that you see the parole board based on this crime that people are not favoring at this time. And at that point, you can be released.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken into effect. You can't keep doing the nature of the crime, and come back in 5 years, because it's like you are sentencing this man to another sentence than what the court intended him to have, what the statute intended for him to do. You know, it's a difference if you say 5 years and 20 years, and then after the whole 20 years, a guy's in there, he's not programming, he's constantly getting in fights. He's getting caught with that hooch, that wine. He's, catching dirty urines because they're pissed. They give us urines in prison. He's coming up with dirty urines. He's involved in a lot of stuff that's not good. And he goes see the parole board. Then that shows that he still needs some time to correct himself, as you pointed out. But a person that did everything that they're supposed to do, and then get to the parole board and you say, hey, nature of the offense, that was already taken into consideration when they gave the time period that it had to be done before you see the parole board. Mr. Parks.
All right, I want to touch on that nature of the crime thing, right? So, Aisha, I'm gonna tell you why I feel like the nature of the crime is important, right? Like you say, a murder is a murder is a murder. Nah, emphatically no, right? Because like there's situations that bring about murder, and I feel in some cases some people need to be dead, right? Like a friend of mine, seriously, right? A friend of mine, his mother was kidnapped and I think tortured, might have cut a finger off or something because they wanted his money, right? So when he caught the guy in the club, he blew his brains out in front of everybody, right? So that's murder, right? He killed that guy. So there's a situation that led to that, right? And in some people's minds, it might be justified. In some people's minds, it might not be. But then there's a guy who might have kidnapped a small child, right? And does whatever he does, has his way with the child, and then kills the child, right? So you can't compare that murder to my homeboy's murder, right? Because, like I say, the nature of the crime, the things that led up. How heinous of a crime was this, right? Or was there torture? A friend of mine was tortured to death before they killed him. They cut off his fingers, burnt him with cigarettes and stuff like so. That's not just a regular murder. He at the end of the day he was dead, right? But what led up to that is what they determine is the nature of the crime, right? How bad, like I got a friend with 180 years because he killed a boy in front of his child and his baby mother. Boy begging him not to kill his father, he blew his brains out anyway. So the courts considered that, right? Whether it had, like, if they had just got an argument at a gas station, you know, and he shot him, it's different, right? So murder is not murder. It's different types of murder. It's different types of killers.
It's like Mr. Jones said, all of those things and those emotions that you're speaking about that determine the nature of the crime, that's all taken into consideration at the time that you're being sentenced.
Charged too
When
now.
when we're
Charged as well.
and
Charged
when
and
we're
sentenced.
talking about a parole situation, there's no levels, there's no degrees of the nature of the crime, the seriousness of an offense. A murder is a murder, a rape is a rape. It is one checkbox for the nature of a crime.
Yeah. So the parole board looks at these things too. So when a person goes up for parole,
Right, and that's the problem.
every time he
because the parole board is retrying cases as if they're judge and jury.
well, yeah, they kind of are, you know, but what I don't like is that the family, the victim's family, they get to appeal to the parole boards. I don't know if y'all know about it, but they get to appeal to the parole boards and be like, oh, I don't want them out. And a lot of times they're in the background and they're constantly weighing in to try to keep this person in, right? But like you said, emotions are driving that. And then you got these parole board, oh, well, we can't let him out. She's not ready yet. Well, it ain't even about her. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you trying to appeal to her? Like, if a person was sentenced, they committed a crime, they were sentenced. Like, if their loved ones, they might not ever be all right with the person getting out, right? But that's it's emotions behind that. So I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's right. And I got a family member who every time this guy comes up, my family member calls in and lets them know that they don't want him out. And I'm telling my family member, like, man, boy been locked up 30 years. Leave him alone. Leave that alone. But it was their best friend and they don't want to leave it alone, and that's the situation with some people. Some people will never get over it. Everybody doesn't forgive and forget. It's not good, it's not right.
Okay, so Mr. Clifton, you have your hand up.
So what about the cases where the family forgives the people who are going up for parole, and the people still say the seriousness of the crime, we're not going to take into consideration what the family has said. And that's one scenario.
That's a good point.
Then another scenario is I've seen it to where when all the victims, all the victims' family die, and they are not there to be in opposition, and the people still let them make parole. You understand? He had the parole. He had 2 licenses. I know a guy had 2 licenses without the possibility of parole, and all his family had died out. So on his last parole hearing, he had nobody there. And the parole board, even though he had 2 licenses without the possibility of parole, they let him go because he had worked for them for 30, 35 years, as an electrician. He was a lineman, so he fixed all the electrician when the power went out and everything. And so they let him make parole. But yet and still, I've seen cases where the family say, I believe that this person is rehabilitated. He's served enough time. 40 years is enough. Matter of fact, some of the people who are on the parole board weren't even born when the crime happened. Mm-hmm. And so they said the seriousness of the crime is never going to change. It's never going to change. The facts are going to be the facts, man, if it's today or if it's 30 years from now. What a person does while he's incarcerated and transforms himself, he can be, he can show that he's been rehabilitated. So who is man especially somebody who wasn't even born when the crime, to say that this person can't be rehabilitated. Man, you know, I've seen what people on the parole board have later caught crimes that they've been denying, been charged with crime like child molestation, for crimes that they were saying that, no, we deny his parole because of the seriousness of the crime. So to me, everybody that he stood before and ruled upon, they should go back and automatically give them a rehearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the thing with Mississippi is they just got a new parole board. What they've been doing in the last couple of years, even though they're overcrowded and full to the hip, they've been setting people off 5 years, whereas they were setting them off 24 months. They tell them what they need to do when they come back. Guys are doing this, getting their GEDs, getting their degrees, coming back, taking courses, taking alcohol and drugs. They're coming back before the parole board, and they're still saying the seriousness of the crime. You know what I mean? So
Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. As you know, as we're pointing out, you can't keep saying the seriousness of the crime. I'm going to let Kevin speak, and then I'm going to read what Sandra McClure out of UK has commented and said, and then my comment is in line with her comments. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Hayes go first. Mr. Hayes.
All right. Regarding the indoor catch-all, we have the final say and you can't appeal it. It's a case Smith versus McDonald versus Smith, came out in 1985. It's a right to redress. You have a constitutional right to redress. Too many times these state entities is implementing these rules and these laws, and this parole panel that isn't no part of really the government, was sworn in by way of an Article 3 judge, are taking it upon themselves to abuse their authority. This is the same thing that Apprende and everything came out of. So what I'm saying is they are now telling you you have no right to redress, to appeal the stuff that they are saying. So therefore, that's it. That is not the American way. This is why you have a district court, then you have an appellate court, and then you have a Supreme Court. What they are telling you is we don't care what any of that is. We're going to do our own thing. That's why it has to be tried. It has to be appealed. It has to be a petition has to be filed to fight that type of a demagoguery or draconian stuff that they're doing, because you have a judicial right to redress. So that's all I had wanted to point out to the
Okay,
panel.
let me say this to you, Mr. Hayes. Appreciate you pulling that up. Once we get our brother home, then we're gonna work on our nephew, Mr. Joshua Williams, in Alabama, because I want to be a part of what's going on. And I have told him that the Reinvention Center and all agencies associated with the Reinvention Center would help him years ago, because we did a show on him years ago. And it's about that time for him to come up, because he can go back up again. He could petition for another hearing after 18 months based on Alabama rules. But what you're telling me, we might need to do a great writ or something and ask the Supreme Court in Alabama to look at this, to alter this. But again, we'll do a Zoom in the next couple of weeks, say 30 days. Because by this time, Dwayne should be home drinking mimosas. That's the strongest thing he's gonna be drinking is mimosas. And then we can collaborate on this next project. But I want to read what Sandra and J Love is saying. Sandra says, and this is key: if you're innocent and won't say I'm guilty, the parole board will frown upon that. They want you to admit guilt to get parole, and they say you're not redeemed or remorseful if you won't admit the crime. Um, um, Let me touch on that before we get to J Love. I think that Aisha, you said that was part of the reason for them for denying Dwayne Brooks. He was not showing any remorse. The question to the panel I propose is, okay, we know that he's innocent. We read the paperwork. We have walked through this process with him, and he has gotten a new trial. which leans towards, at the least, that he's innocent. That being the case, should he have admitted to the crime? Should he have said something to the crime? That's the first question. Second question is, how the hell did the parole board deny a man who's innocent of a crime and tell the world that he's not fit to be in society for 5 times? They have denied this gentleman 5 times who hasn't committed the crime, and said that a person who hasn't committed a crime, they have found it in their head based on whatever set of facts they have deemed, and they use this nature or the seriousness of the crime or nature of the crime to keep a man that's innocent behind bars and say that he's not fit for society. So that means they can just walk up to, equivalent to them walking up to you, locking you up and say you're not fit for society, even though you haven't committed a crime. What do we?
I think
Go
I
ahead.
got an answer to that, right? So the parole board, now, you know, the parole boards are different from state to state. Parole board is just for whatever particular state you in, right? I know Virginia and North Carolina, when they did have parole, the parole board doesn't question the judgment of the sentencing body. They have a specific role, right? And that's to evaluate the progress of the individual to determine whether or not he should be granted a second chance at this time. So that they'll always say at this time, we're ruling that it's always at this time. Like right now, you ain't ready. We're not ready to grant you a second chance.
Based on his progress.
Yeah, exactly. So what
Okay.
Sandra said was excellent. hadn't even thought about that, but she was right on point about they want to see if you're accountable. If you're still denying culpability and the court's convicted you, they're not going to second guess the court's conviction. That's not their role. Like their
Okay.
role is just to evaluate you since your conviction, not to determine
Okay,
whether or not.
okay. So now, Carlos, the problem with that is the parole boards are not doing that. Because as you said, when they look at a person's progress, the nature or the seriousness of the offense does not represent this person's progress in any form or fashion.
It actually has nothing to do with it.
So I'm not defending their actions, right?
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, I don't like the parole. Right? I'm not defending their actions, right? I'm just saying what, like their role.
Maybe they need to go back to the progress, which goes back to what somebody said about what have you done in prison. I think it was Murray said what you have done in prison. How have you done this? I don't think that me admitting to a crime that I've been convicted of should be one of the requirements in order for me to get parole. Because if I went to trial, I'm saying I'm innocent. Now you want to make me, even though I've been in trial, come back and say, hey, I'm guilty. What if something comes up later on down the line that helps me, but they have this guilty admission that I didn't give at the parole board saying I was innocent. I mean, I'm guilty in hopes of getting out of jail. Because I admit I'm guilty don't mean they're gonna let me out. It's just in hopes of getting out of jail. And we know in plea bargains in any judicial system or hearing, they record, hold, and use against you the things that you say. So I agree with you. It should be based on progress, not judgment. Because you're sitting there not looking at the judgment. The judgment is what happened when I was found guilty. The judge gave me that. That's already been taken care of. I got a 20-year sentence. So the judgment has. Go ahead.
They got something called accountability. You missing that point. You have to accountability. That's what's going to kill you every time with the parole board. They want, and accountability is admitting that it was you. That's accountability. When I got my license, I had to go before the real estate commission and admit, hey man, I made mistakes in the past. They don't want to hear you saying that, man, somebody pointed the finger at me. It wasn't really. So that might be the case, but that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear that you're accountable. You're holding yourself accountable. So that's
and I get that you're playing devil's advocate. I know this is not Carlos Parks' position.
No, let Kevin speak. Let Kevin. I want to hear Kevin because he had.
All right. Go ahead, Kevin.
No. Basically, what Mr. Parks is saying is right regarding that issue. I don't agree with what they're doing, but pretty much you alluded to it too, Mr. Jones. I mean, too many if you helping the guy out with his parole, and the first thing they want you to do is come to admit to something that you haven't even done, and then let's say you admit to it, it's still no guarantee that you're gonna get the parole. And then when they do give you the parole, like how Aisha dug up and all this evidence to prove this man innocent, they're not no court in the land is interested in his guilt and innocence after he done got up there at the parole and said, yeah, I did it. But this is what they want because it's sad because it's like the carrot in this thing. They take your freedom and they dangle it in front of you, and you like to a point where you're willing to do anything. You're willing to do anything. I mean, with hindsight is 2020. Why would a man want? Because he want his freedom. Listen to me. To anybody, when you're incarcerated and when you lose your freedom, that's second to death. The loss of freedom is second to death. So I can understand it. And you gotta be strong, especially if you're innocent. I did 27 years. I know what it's like to be buried alive. So I understand the ones that don't do it, and I understand the ones that do.
I agree. I understand the ones that do things in order to try to gain their freedom. I'm not judging them or condemning them or, in any form or fashion, but there are people that take the opposite stance. Mr. Brooks is saying, hey, I didn't do this and I didn't do this and I'm not admitting to doing something I didn't do. And he's not the only one that has done this before, but we're using him because this is a part of our family. He said, I didn't do it. So now, of course, they may have wanted him to admit to doing it, but would he be able to be where he's at right now today had he admitted in a parole hearing, I'm guilty? The prosecutor would have thrown that up in every other line, and his response would have been, on such and such day in a parole hearing, Dwayne Brooks admitted to this crime.
You're right. And Mr. Jones, you 100% right. And they dogged me out so bad at trial, they gave me an immediate release because there was no way I was going to stand back. I wouldn't give a whether I did it or not. I wasn't going to stand before no other man and tell him I did anything after the corruption and the degradation and inhumane stuff I've seen and been through in that system. They just went on to kick me out of there. They knew I was standing up in front.
Last show we had, I was saying it wasn't it was basically a emergency show that we had. We was updating everybody about the new trial, the ruling of the court. I had told Aisha, she thanked us for the contributions and the efforts and everything we had done to help and assist. And I had said to Aisha, we thank you because a lot of family members don't stay dug in and rooted in the way that they have rooted in. That means that I'm telling you that made a difference. I'm going to read now what J Love said. She's typing, of course, on Facebook. Says parole board emailed me and stated that my son was lucky to have me as a mom and the support of his community and gave me his release date, a miracle. So it's because of the people that's on the outside that makes a even huger impact than the people that's actually fighting. And when they know people care about you, we know this. When they know you got support and people that care about you, they don't do the same thing to you as they would do a person that's in the courtroom and nobody comes in the courtroom and does anything. It's an old cliche. If you're by yourself, nobody cares about concerned about what happens to you. But if you got some support, they got to be concerned about, people are concerned about what happened to you and they're going to question that. So they tend to do what's right a little bit more. I'm not saying they always do what's right, but when they know you have support, but in this case, Dwayne didn't commit the crime. And the parole board kept saying the nature of the offense, no remorse. How do I show remorse for something I didn't do?
And again, a lot of it in Dwayne's situation is their narrative, right? And I can only speak to his situation. If I were at home, I would share with you these documents in each one of these denial letters and how they're written up. But I think where we as the public really go wrong is we use too much logic in how the parole board is operating. The parole board is not operating in any sort of logic. Okay. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. And in a lot of instances, they're not even listening. They're not even really hearing the person sitting in front of them pleading for their life. A lot of them just don't take it very serious. In 2000, oh gosh, what was it? Maybe 2017 or so, there was a parole board member who resigned from the parole board and basically told the whole story of what goes on behind those closed doors and what's taking place, and how, you know, people who don't even sit in on parole board hearings are allowed to make a decision on someone, whether or not someone gets a parole. They never even sat in on the hearing. How the people that may be present, they're ordering lunch and, you know, hey, pass the mustard, while someone is pleading their life. Dwayne incarcerated for 30 some odd years, not a blemish on his record, many programs, certificates. None of it mattered, right? And while he may not be admitting that, you know, yeah, I did this and I did that and I played this role, there is absolutely remorse. He is absolutely very sorry that this has happened, not only for the, you know, for himself, but for the victims as well, for the victim's family. And then lo and behold, come to find out somewhere in about 2021, this was after we were already denied the parole reconsideration from 2020, it came out that the family members were actually contacted, interviewed, and had no opposition to Dwayne's release for parole. On that last decision letter, the reasons for Dwayne's denial were, again, the serious nature of the crime. This time it was a second box check, and this was the first time that there was ever a second box check. And that second box was something along the lines of, he may be a threat to society or go back to engaging in criminal activity. After 30 some odd years, never having been any sort of a criminal from the beginning, but now you put that as a check mark, because I've been screaming to them all along, this serious nature of the crime as a checkbox, a check catch-all, is absolutely insane. Again, he's sentenced based on the nature of the crime. That crime is never going to change. Either you're going to evaluate him based on the time that he's walked through the doors at the correction facility and what he's done, and here's all the proof of what someone has done and how they have been rehabilitated. Is no reason to deny someone. The last one said, while he begins to show some remorse, right? Well, he's always been very sorry that this has happened. However, it's not him. And to make him a liar, to make someone become a liar at the hope that they may get some benefit, because there's still no guarantee, is still even another level of corruption. And these parole boards, they're rogue. They don't really answer to anyone. There's no one sitting above them. We, at one point in time, tried to go above them and go to the governor, got to the governor, and the governor ends up kicking it right back to the parole board with the explanation that this is a decision that's better handled by the parole board. Well, we're only coming to you, Mr. Governor, because there's some things that are not right there.
Let me say this. Today, if I was to go and interview the guards that was in the prisons of where I've been at, because like Mr. Brooks, I've always done good. I'm not saying I have a record like Mr. Brooks, because I've been in the hole and I've been different places. And I wasn't around, but no, I wasn't in prison doing a bunch of knucklehead stuff. But I'm saying, if you go ask the
But
average,
it's almost hard not to get something, right? It's
it
hard
is,
not
it
to
is,
walk
you're gonna get caught
something.
up in something regardless. What I mean by like Mr. Brooks is like a mentor. He's one that's respected. He's like the wise gentleman. He's like the wise guy, the wise older gentleman. So when something happens, people come to him for his insight and things, and he may be able to prevent a lot of things from happening. What happens is the system deems him as too powerful. So what they would do, they would lock him up and put him in the hole or put him in this and have him under investigation and then let him go. But it's still on your record as if you was under investigation for possible gang activity or whatever the case may be. So this is why I say your record don't always have, be without blemish. But I'm saying this here. My point I'm making is if you go ask the guards that were around me, the staff members that were assisting me obtaining education and furthering my education and getting skills, people that were in the law library and stuff like that. They're talking about staff, not inmates. They would tell you today, I knew that he was going to go home and do what he's done. Meaning, I knew he was going to go home and do what was right. I didn't have a shadow of my doubt. There was no shadow of a doubt that he was not going to go out there and commit a crime. But they'll say that the people who are around me, but then I go to the parole board, somebody who hasn't lived around me every day for the last 10 years, and they'll tell me, oh, you're not ready. How? You haven't observed me. You haven't been around me. Same thing with Dwayne. If you go and take a consensus of the prisons he's been in and say, do you think Dwayne Brooks is going to reoffend when he get out? You have a high probability of people saying no. That's the first thing. Second thing I want to say is, what the hell is the remorse for Dwayne Brooks for being incarcerated for 34 years for a crime he didn't commit? Where's the remorse for that? Right now today, they're saying we're going to give him a bond. That shows a lot of remorse, doesn't it? I agree that you based on the judge's decision that the guy was untrustworthy and not believable, amongst other things, and that he may have taken what he was doing and made it into you, and the fact that he was the one being investigated. So I'm saying, where's the remorse for that now? This is what I would like to know. Where's the remorse from the court system? Because they shouldn't be saying, we're going to give you a bond. They should be saying, we're going to let you out on ROR, your own reconnaissance. Because we regret, we empathize with you because you'd have done 34 years for something that I deem, and this is coming from the judge, you shouldn't even been convicted of. I'm saying that you've been in prison for 34 years based on a wrongful conviction, and your due process was violated. So there's no consequences for them violating the Dwayne Brooks. Where's the remorse at? Now he got to pay to get his freedom now. But they're saying he didn't show no remorse by going into the parole board and saying, hey, I want to admit to a crime that I didn't commit. If he said it just like that, they wouldn't let him out. They'll still say he's not remorseful. Y'all want him to commit to the crime. Is it going to get me home today? Yeah, it's going to get you home. Okay, I did it. I'm saying it just to go home. Then they'll say, oh, you're not remorseful still. But again, where's the remorse for Mr. Brooks? Mr. Hayes?
Well, basically, not to defend the parole board, what you have to be mindful of is how many people actually go before the parole board that has been convicted and that is actually guilty. So therefore, when Dwayne Brooks comes and he says, I'm innocent, he's just another one of them guys that's living in on fantasy land. Um, yeah, we heard this before. This is what y'all all say after you lose trial. We get you 10 or 15 years down the line. Eventually you'll say that you're guilty. But like I said, you really don't know. So you can't really do the parole board like that because they probably hear that a lot. Um, Granted, he should have been out for his good behavior, as you alluded to, Mr. Jones. He should have been out. Regarding him getting out on bail and how they're doing this, the reason why I see from judicial reasons of the procedures, they have to give him a bail because they want to give because the prosecutors has, I believe it is, if I stand corrected, 90 days to appeal the judge's decision. So therefore, they're gonna give him that window there. Then eventually, as after the 90-day lapse, they probably aren't gonna appeal the judge's decision. If you do it, so what? But if they do, the appeal court probably gonna knock it back down. But nonetheless, 90 days after the judge's decision, and then to appeal the judge's decision, and then they're just going and start pulling you all in the back, Aisha and Dwayne in the back room. Look, man, how much do y'all want?
That don't, and I understand that, but that don't, that don't replace them 34 years. That doesn't replace his children.
34 years.
Yeah,
It
it doesn't replace his
replace.
children growing up without their father. And
Right.
I understand what you're saying,
Right now,
Kevin
and
Hayes. You're
Dwayne, right
not
now-
agreeing with that. You're just telling what's going to happen. You see what I'm saying? That's what's going to happen. I get that. But I want them to know, hey man, that's not enough. It's not enough. Look at life expectancy. We want Dwayne to live like everybody else that lived in the Bible, thousands of years or whatever the case may be. But when we look at today's life expectancy, they're saying Dwayne has another 20 years to live. He got less time to live than he served in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And now it's supposed to be okay because you tell me I'm going to give you $3-4 million and you can go live good for the rest of your life. What about not being able to see my child have a child, or my child on their first date, or doing the father-daughter dance or whatever the case? Because we done met his daughter. There's a whole lot of things, that memorable moments that he done missed out on that money can't replace. It's an old cliche. You can't replace your presence with presence. And that in their mentality, that's what we're going to do. But again, let me go back to the parole board. You make a great point. The parole board probably heard this 1,000 times. The judge probably heard this 1,000 times that I'm innocent. The prosecutor probably heard 1,000 times that I'm innocent. Can't put him in there because he should have known, because he has an obligation based on laws that he should have known about those reports. If there was in any government agency custody, he should have known. That's the law. So we're going to exclude the prosecutor, but everybody else is, we'll say, okay, you heard this before. Okay, now my question is, we're talking about remorse. When do they say, okay, we wronged this man, let the man out on bond without having to pay anything? Why is it they're still trying to get money and stuff out of the family by having the family post the bond and do a lot of other things?
Can I take this one?
Yes, sir.
Never. I'm gonna tell you why, right? They'll never say that. They never admit culpability. They just throw some money at him and be like,
but they want
man,
us to admit it though.
Yeah, exactly. But see, this is where I differ from a lot of people. I don't expect a lot out of them. Like I don't remember, was it Hyoka County or wherever that's like. Or I don't expect much more out of Ohio prison system than I do out of Virginia prison system or North Carolina prison system, right? Because like it's all a system. It's all a system, and like Maurice Clifton was saying earlier, right? If people did their history, if they researched their history, they know where this system derived from. This system was put in place after slavery. And it was a way, like he said, when they released people from those plantations, they still didn't have nowhere to go. They didn't release them with anything. They just said, y'all free. All right, so y'all been taken care of all this time, but now y'all free. All right, free to do what? You ain't gave Like you ain't gave us nothing, no opportunity. And then they started locking them back up. So the prison industrial system was created to replace that lost income that a lot of the southern slave owners lost with the freedom of the slave. They lost money. Like it was chattel slavery. That meant property. So they lost property. They lost, it was basically the same as losing land, right? If you had 100 slaves, you just lost a couple of houses. You know, so the South, that was their way of coming back, taking their slaves back, as they created this slave labor. So, you know, places like Mississippi and Alabama is worse. But at the end of the day, they're not going to apologize for it. These systems will put, if you have any time, man, read Trevor Noah's book or just get it on audio book and listen to it. And when he talks about South Africa's, what's it, apartheid system, the way it was designed and they used American, the United States slavery system. I forgot, like 3 different forms of oppression across the world they use to come up with apartheid. It's a form of oppression. It's a form of mind control. It's a way to control masses, right? And that's what they're doing with this prison industrial system. Please watch or listen to, read or I listen to books now. I don't really read them that much. But Trevor Noah's book, man, is man, outstanding. And it gives in detail about our system.
Okay, Lisa Riley said we have to push for change.
We've been pushing for change, Lisa. That's it's the way.
In all actuality, let me give you an example of something. Okay, we have Joshua Williams down in Alabama. This is the gentleman that we actively been a part of trying to help him get granted parole. He's been in prison now. Again, he don't have a spotless record, you know. But honestly, as I think it was Aisha said, who the hell really has a spotless record in prison? You know, let's be realistic. You know, you're in an unnatural environment when you, especially if you're in a pen. You know, and I'm sure that, you know, again, based on the nature of your offenses, how they categorize you on what level of security level of prison you're going to go to. So now we have a offense that they feel to be deemed to be one that's kind of harsh or unfavorable. They're going to put us in a higher level. You got a bunch of people that got the same mentality in the higher level. It's more aggressive. When they put me in United States Penitentiary in Atlanta, everybody, 80% of the prison was never going home. And the saying was, I got life, I'm not going to fight. And they're pulling out lawnmower blades. You know, so now either I adjust to the environment I'm in and become more aggressive, or I get taken advantage of. You see what I'm saying? So it's, you know, human instinct, self-preservation should kick in for everybody. And you're not going to get taken advantage of. So the next thing you know, I got me a lawnmower blade. And just having one, they can, as we know, they can run down on us or and find it. And now I'm in the hole for a dangerous weapon. All because I'm trying to protect myself, honestly. I'm not running around trying to rob nobody, stab nobody, do none of that type of foolishness. So my point is, you're going to have some blemishes on your record. You see what I'm saying? But now, they say he, you know, he's, you know, his record is way better than it is bad. Okay, this gentleman, he goes to see the parole board. They tell him, no, we're not giving you parole because an outside organization came and said, we don't think he's done enough time. An outside organization, not part of the court system. I think it's the Victim Rights Act or a victims group or something that comes to, we feel like he hasn't done enough time. So they say he hasn't done enough time. And then that's it. The decision is final. You know, Lisa's saying just what we said earlier. Kevin gave us a law. We need to file something on his behalf to the Supreme Court trying to get that change. Normally, when you start making the noise, and Dwayne's Brook case is a part of this, and a prime example of this. When you start making that noise and getting other people to start looking in that window in that house, they want to get you out the house because you're the minority. You're one of the only ones that's making this noise. So I'd rather let you go than to have to let 10,000 of them go. So now, this is what I think she means by we have to make a change. We have to come up with something, a plan of attack when it comes to what we're going to do with this gentleman, how we're going to do it. because at the same time it's sad, and I really don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it because we got to be careful because if we go to filing something and we piss these good old boys off, and they could be white, black, Chinese, whatever, they're just good old boys. Now, good old boys meaning a part of a group of that feel like they're above everybody. Now they're gonna just do it for the sake of being able to do it. So we have to really, like we say, put our heads together and come up with the direction we're gonna go with this gentleman.
James,
Go ahead.
James, can I clarify something that you just said? Because sometimes we talk, right, and we don't realize that Aisha and Lisa and maybe even your brother, they don't catch our jargon. So when you mentioned pulling out lawnmower blades, it might have went over some heads. Let me go into detail about what a lawnmower blade is. It's an actual lawnmower blade that's been made into a knife or machete type instrument, right? So this is they actually have these. There are guys in there who have, we call them bangers, right? That you would not believe. I will go on the record and say I used to make knives and sell knives because in this situation, in this environment, you have to have a weapon to defend yourself. When I would walk the track, when I was in Beaumont, I would walk the track and we would see the Spanish guys, the Mexicans would be in the little gutter area, right, around the track, sharpening knives all the time, every day. They would be over there sharp. They would wait for the perimeter truck to pass by and they'd start sharpening. They'll start sharpening. So in this situation, for your loved ones might hear, oh, he got caught with a knife. And that can carry extra time, and it seems like a person is misbehaving. He got caught with another knife. He had a knife, he better, and that's just the situation we're in. So when they say, like you were saying, the clear history, who didn't have a knife in there? You had to. And then if you might be involved in a race riot, you gotta. You don't have a choice. In a race riot, you can't sit back. You're in that race. So the situation is very, very violent in there, and it's hard to avoid some type of conflict, something. So for your brother to have done that amount of time and remain clear, like that is a huge testament to his resolve, man. Like that's crazy. Like
it also shows the level of respect that the other prisoners have for him.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a detriment to your brother because the staff is going to be upset because and they're going to say he has more respect from these inmates than what we have because they're the ones that's supposed to be instilling the respect. They feel like they should be the one with the respect. You know what I'm saying? So which makes it double time harder for Mr. Brooks. So now for him to come out of that environment and come to where he's at today, when the hell does he get some remorse? Why must he post a bond? Why don't they say, hey, we're going to let you go on your own recognizance under conditions or whatever the case may be? Again, you're not showing this man no remorse for locking him up for 34 years, man. 34 years. Wrongfully locking him up for 34 years. If you want to make right the wrong, you start by letting them out without having to pay no bond.
You're right. But again, the case is still pending. There's another party involved in this, and it's the prosecutor. Everything you're saying is right. But then there's a judicial process that must be played out. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. I couldn't agree more. The judge should just let him out. But there is a judicial process. There's another player.
So we have one player that's saying he shouldn't get out or whatever, that's going in opposition of things. Let me say it that way. We have one player that's in opposition to things, right? And this just so happened to be the same player that dropped the ball with this Brady material. This just so happened to be the one player that prosecuted this man and kept this man in prison for all these years, even though they didn't do what they're supposed to do. Now, all of a sudden that we'd improved that you didn't do what you're supposed to do, now we're supposed to still take your word. He should be treated just like
it's the same prosecutor.
No, it's not.
It's the
That's
same
why
prosecutor. It's the
no, it's
same
not the same
prosecutor's office.
Okay,
But
all right, got
but
you.
it's not.
It's the same
But that makes
prosecutor's
it.
office.
Okay,
So now, if I'm the judge, I'm taking whatever coming out of y'all office, I'm looking at y'all sideways.
And can we just, let me just enter in here that, the state put out a response to the motion for bail. And they were not opposing a bail. They wanted the judge to be considerate in the dollar amount that would be set, but there was no opposition to whether or not he be granted a bail or a bond.
Thank you for that. When I'm speaking on reconnaissance, because that's what I feel like he should get.
And I agree. And I also wanted to just kind of put in there also, like you mentioned, there's no remorse. The conditions that he's under right now, Dwayne is under a 36-hour lock-in inside this county jail. The things that he's having to endure just on the tail end to be able to get to this place. It's hell by itself. Only to, have now, there's a dollar amount that the family is going to have to pay. And we're doing our best to get prepared for something hefty. We have no idea what it's going to be or what the conditions will be. Will he be required to stay within this area? This is not his home. It's not his home. But we're being told and advised that all of these scenarios could actually come into play. There could be, ankle monitoring. There could be the fact that he may have to remain within this county. All of these stipulations that would normally apply to a parole or a probation type of situation. But now here he's being brought back, overturned conviction, everything in his favor, and he still has everything to prove. There's no such thing in this world as innocent until proven guilty. It does not exist.
I agree.
I kind of dropped the ball on this. I have a student at American University. I had the privilege of going out there and speak to a class, our graduate class, and she's writing a paper on innocent until proven guilty in due process. And I wrote something in regards to that, telling her exactly what you're saying. I had invited her, but I dropped the ball and forgot to check my emails before we started the show and send her the link and see if she said yes and send her the link. She needed to hear that, because that's what the paper's on. If I'm innocent, why do I got to give a bond? Why do I have to have a bond if I'm innocent? If I'm innocent, why give me a bond? Why put restrictions on me? I'm innocent. You restrict me once you prove me guilty. That's what the whole process is supposed to be about. Granted, it's the court system is not doing, well, I'm not gonna say not doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing exactly what they designed it to do, but the illusion they're giving us that hey, we're innocent and proven guilty, we can kill that. Stop that. Just like they say the police are here to serve and protect, kill that. A lot of people are, it's a whole lot of things that they put out there and want us to look at and focus on that's not true. And that was one of the things that I said to them when I was speaking to the class. I asked them, what is the police job? What is their responsibility? And they say serve and protect. I said, somebody Google that, please. And then they read it out loud and everybody's sitting there looking, shocked because they've always been taught or trained to think, and I'm gonna use the word trained to think that they're there to serve and protect. We've been trained to think that you're innocent until proven guilty. That don't exist. As soon as you get charged with the crime, they start treating you completely different than you are if you're an innocent citizen. Immediately, They don't put innocent people in handcuffs. They don't put them in the back of police cars. They don't take them to the jail and make you sit there till you see a judge. They don't go in front of a judge and read what you done. Then they don't say, hey, they don't make it a question of determination of whether you are fit to be out in society. After you've been in society for 20 years, worked on the same job for 15 years, got 3 kids, you've been, and now all of a sudden, because you're charged with a crime, now you're a flight risk. Where the hell am I go? I've been here for 20 years. I've been working at the same job for 15 years. That's not stability. So I definitely agree. We have to do something with the parole boards. We, as Jay Love was saying, we have to do something as far as, Lisa was saying, we have to get off our butt and do something. So again, we need to, in the near future, after Dwayne Brooks stuff get wrapped up, because we're still in the middle of this fight here, and we don't want to do like, some people, some countries do, spread ourselves thin by sending soldiers over here, soldiers over there, soldiers over here. Let's focus on this one fight, and then we go to the next fight, because something needs to be done. But to me, there's no remorse for Dwayne Brooks. That's what I'm getting at. It's been deemed that he's innocent, and he should not have to, be in jail no more, because you took him out of prison immediately, because you're saying he's not fit to be there. But you're saying, but he is fit to be in the county jail, locked down on a 23-1, where he's locked in the cell 23 hours a day and gets to come out for 1 hour for rest. Again, is that how you treat an innocent citizen? You got people that's in there that's out in the pod all day. Why doesn't he get that? But again, I wanted to bring this to people so they can understand how this works. And I just I can't come up with an answer of why Dwayne Brooks is getting treated the way he's getting treated. Why there's no remorse for Dwayne Brooks. Everybody wants, us to, or people to show remorse. And okay, now this has happened, and he's not worthy of no remorse. Any last words? Well, thank everybody for attending. Next week, the topic of the show will be the breakdown of the Jim Crow law recently passed in Mississippi. So we'll get on that next week. Mr. Clifton, we're looking forward to you and anybody else doing research and bringing some information forth on this. We definitely would like the clarification of this. Good thing about our family, we got somebody living in Jackson, Mississippi that's witnessing it firsthand, so we can get some firsthand information out of it. And as a part of the judicial system down there in Mississippi as well, and deal with the political figures in the community and stuff like that there. So with that being said, we'll look forward to having the topic next week. We're going to keep Dwayne Brooks lifted up in prayers and hope everything works out tomorrow in his favor, without having to come up with a hefty amount of money, because, sad but true, they see the support and they say, well, hey, since we see the support, he can pay some money.
She is so beautiful.
Hey, baby Clifton. Yes. That's a good ending note.
Hey, how's the wife, Mr. Clifton?
Tell him then.
Aw.
I'm gonna break down Mississippi next week. Tell him. You gonna break it down next week?
Yeah.
You gonna break
Yeah.
it down next week?
All right, well, everybody, we're going to get off of here, and we're going to look forward to seeing everybody next week the same time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Boss Lady and Miss Williams for coming tonight. Do know that we will be getting on Joshua soon. But these parole boards, we have to do something about it. And I'll leave with, keep Dwayne Brooks in prayer for tomorrow, and hopefully everything will work out. We'll have if he's free tomorrow. We ain't gonna say tomorrow, because I know the family gonna be busy, but sometime in the near future, we'll do something, another live emergency live, and let everybody know that he's out, and let you see him and let him say a few words to everybody when he has time, if he's free tomorrow. Go ahead, Mr. Hayes.
Speaking into existence, we see him with Aisha and everybody when he get out tomorrow.
Yeah, we're not expecting him to want to get on those Zoom after 34 years. The first thing he gonna want to do is get on those Zoom. You
We're
want to
not
eat some,
expecting,
you want to eat some
but
chicken. I want to eat some
but
lamb, you know.
okay, whenever he get out the mall, they may just let him out on his own R&R with the family support and everything there. So we don't know what's gonna outcome gonna be, but you should always stay ready just in case. But anyway, we'll see him and we'll talk to everybody. Or Aisha just text us, let us know because he's coming home tomorrow. So it's not like, you know. So we just gonna speak that into existence. That's
Oh,
what's happening.
he's coming home. He's coming home for
There you go.
sure.
It's still so surreal to me to even think of it all. Like, and I'm so tired, y'all. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But tomorrow, this is tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. You know, thank Mr. Brooks, you know, and everything. We definitely want to see him through this and get him where he's on the ground. We know, just like they would say about us, that he's not going to commit no crime once he get out. They know it. That's why they're not trying to let him out. They're going to fight you to keep him in jail because he does more good for them.
He
You know,
is
because
57 years, and I tease him all the time. I said, if they only knew you just want to go lay in your mommy's bed. That's all he want to do. That's all he was like at this moment. That's it. Like, so, yeah.
all right, everybody. Everybody have a good night. And I see y'all tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow. Tomorrow because he'll get out tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Good night. Bye, jury.